seems to be the theme of the year, unfortunately, and now there is a divide among the players as well. Eric Reid and Malcolm Jenkins not seeing eye to eye on the NFL's $100 million donation to social injustice issues. Damian Woody in the house. How are we doing, my friend?
Good, good. What's going on?
As a former player, I'd like to start with you. What's your reaction to this?
I'm disappointed. I'm disappointed because, you know, for me, the central question that I have is, what is this really all about? From the player standpoint, why the fracture in this particular situation? Is it because one side is getting more shine than the other? I thought this was about the issues and, you know, the NFL partnering with the players to directly help fund things that I think everyone can agree upon. In my mind, I'm just wondering, what are the motivations behind these guys as to why all of a sudden now we're fracturing? One side is going one way, one side is going the other way. The NFL is basically throwing their money where their mouth is. They didn't have to do this, but they decided, you know what? We're going to go ahead and get behind this because A, it could be, you know, good business for us to try to, you know, squash the protest, but also, and I think just looking long term, B, if you look at one issue that a lot of people have with Roger Goodell and the NFL, it's a relationship with the players. Okay, and this is a situation where this is an opportunity for the NFL and the players to come together on something where they agree upon, looking ahead to the CBA that's coming up in a few years. So I'm just wondering, from an optics standpoint, what are these guys doing? Do you guys need to? Who wants to shine here? I thought this was about the cause, and the NFL, again, like I said, is throwing the money where their mouth is. So what's the deal?
Well, earlier in the show, I said the Brandon Ingram, Lonzo Ball hand-wringing is the kind of issue of never show a fool half a job, right? They didn't go to college long enough, and they're not really ready for the NBA, but they have a high upside. Let's not judge them too early. And that is, in a way, analogous to this is how the sausage is made, right? When you peek behind the curtain and look at the process of how something is done, and you mistake that for the result, there will be a lot of criticism because a lot of times it's ugly. And this goes for any advocacy group, right? A group comes together with the same basic agenda. People have the same basic agenda. But they're not always exactly on the same page because they're still in the process. And we see it as two sides, NFL, players. And we want the players to behave as a monolith. But they're not. And this goes for any kind of group that has Bernie or Hillary, the Trump GOP versus the never Trump GOP, the SCLC versus the SNCC, right? Like in the civil rights movement. There were differences among a group with the same basic agenda. They have internal squabbles as they're figuring everything out. And to the public, if it becomes public, it seems to us that they deserve criticism and get on the same page. This is the process of what they are doing now. Some of them don't think it's a good enough offer. Some of them have other reasons for not wanting to do it. And we're seeing it play out because of media scrutiny, social media, etc. This is how the sausage is made.
It doesn't make it right, Max. And I totally agree with Damian and what he's saying here. Here's the reality of the situation. No disrespect to Eric Reid. I'm quite sure whatever feelings he may have is legitimate. He's out of LSU. He's in his 5th year as a free safety for the San Francisco 49ers. He's getting a salary of $5.6 million this year. Just because you're getting paid doesn't mean you need to sit back and be quiet. I'm certainly not trying to imply that. But when we consider the issue that has been taking place before our very eyes, the optics matter. We use that word often. It matters here. How is it that you could possibly think anything productive comes out of you and other players coming across as a divided front after all the noise you've made about the country needing to come together? That's the point. The whole objective is about coming together. The whole objective, whether it's inequality, whether it's oppression, whether it's police brutality, it's addressing the concerns of the African-American community. You were never protesting the NFL. Eric Reid proves that because you're accepting a salary from them, so evidently they ain't that damn bad. The NFL doesn't have anything to do with police brutality. The NFL didn't have anything to do with inequality. White and black players and Hispanic players and coaches like Ron Rivera and others are getting paid to some degree. We can debate the amount of money or whatever the case may be, but it's clear it's the business of football. The NFL made this decision because they want to make sure to kind of quell the momentum stirring against them because their revenue and their ratings have been compromised. Knowing this and knowing that the protests have contributed to it, which essentially was your goal so you can get a contribution from the NFL to help address issues that didn't involve the NFL, they pledged $89 million. Whether you agree or disagree, how in God's name could you possibly think a statement coming out where you're dividing yourself and alluding to others having divided themselves against the Malcolm Jenkins and Anquan Boldens of the world, who are at the table talking to these owners who are not the cause of police brutality and these other issues that you want to address. That comes across as not being on the same page. There's a divide that exists. There isn't unity, which ultimately emboldens those against you and your supposed causes, because they're able to say, damn it, y'all ain't even unified.
Let me ask you something.
And that's the
Let me ask you
problem.
something. We talked yesterday that it appears not to be a quid pro quo offer. It's $100 million, not quid pro quo. Then more reporting comes out, okay, maybe it's $89 million,
can't believe it.
and maybe it is quid pro quo. The point is the details matter to some of the players. Wait a minute, we're not going to necessarily stop. I thought this was just a good faith offer. Oh, we have to stop protesting as a result of this? We never agreed to that. Or maybe it has something to do with Kaepernick not being invited. We're hearing conflicting reports. He was, he wasn't. They may have legitimate issues on the points.
Damien, I'm not debating the issue. What I'm saying is, when you publicize the divide, it weakens you. It weakens your
Keep
streak.
it in-house, in other words.
That's my whole point. Is I'm disappointed that the players, one faction of the players decided to issue a statement, because this goes not only to this issue, but it also goes back to why the players lost the CBA, because fractures within the players union. So if you're going to have this issue and you're working towards a common goal, something good, because we've always said, okay, you guys are doing the protest, but what's the end game? Well, you're starting to see the end game come together, and then all of a sudden you see a statement from a faction of players like, we're breaking up from this.
And then you change the discussion again, and it gets away from the issue.
And like Stephen A. said, it weakens you.
And not only that, let's put on our big boy pants in this particular situation here. When you come across like this, you're acting like you have leverage. Excuse me, what leverage do you have if you come across as lacking? I'm not saying you have no leverage. What I'm saying is, ultimately, the leverage that you think you're exercising, you're going to suffer the consequences too. Remember, if the owners are losing money, the players are going to lose money too eventually. You got to remember that.
This has been the history of labor relations to ownership and management throughout the history of this country.
This is not a labor relation issue.
In a sense, it is, because you want labor here, players, to act as a monolith, to act lockstep. The problem is they're used to not acting lockstep, partially because they get paid in all different kinds of ways, partially because they come from different backgrounds. It's always difficult to keep a union together because they have different interests, members of the union. There are far fewer owners representing the other side, particularly in this case where these are complex social issues involved.
All right, we got to leave it there, guys.
They gave up over $10 billion in their last CBA negotiation, okay? And now you've got this situation where you actually were in a good position, and now you come across as lacking unity amongst yourselves. You've dissipated and reduced the strength and potency of your own arguments before the nation's very eyes.
All right, that'll do it.